Okay, now it's time to tie this all together. Alright? Now, what we have, alright, and Plato snuck this into the speech a little bit earlier, alright, right at his conclusion. Do you remember that thing about do wolves love lambs? That's how a lover befriends a boy? Alright? Well, let me look it up here. It's on your page. Where is it? Okay. 22 on the bottom. Alright? No, like food, its purpose is to sate hunger. Do wolves love lambs? That's how lovers befriend a boy. Right? Check out footnote number 47, right on page 22, right by 241d. Do wolves love agapos, agaposin, right, which is a form of agape, lambs. That's how lovers, from eros, befriend, philia, a boy. Note the three different verbs for love. All right. Now, for some reason, these Greeks, they're fond of their threes, right? And in mythology, threes have been considered sort of a magical number. All right. Now, what I didn't tell you about the forms is that really they're all one, but we can see certain different aspects of them. All right. So, what we intuit when we directly intuit the forms is one big ball of truth. Right? This is truth in itself, and every time we study an aspect of it, we say that's a tree, we say that's a rock, we say that's a table, a chair, a coffee cup. Every time we study triangles versus squares versus circles mathematically, what we're doing is we're studying truth. Right? And it's all kind of one. Right? But what Plato does is divide it into three major aspects, right? The good, the true, and the beautiful, right? These are things in themselves. Truth in itself is very different than we perceive it, right? When we say that's a good thing you did there, right? What we're saying is that's a reasonable approximation of what goodness in itself is, right? When we say, hey, check out, that's a beautiful sunset. Right? Weren't expecting sunset, were you? Anyhow, what we mean is that is a pretty good imitation of what perfect beauty is. The forms are perfect, they're not subject to change. Well, there are many beautiful things, there is but one form of beauty. Well, there are many good acts, there is but one truth of goodness. Well, there are many truths that we speak, right? There is but one absolute truth. That's what the forms are. That's what Plato would claim our sciences refer to, right? Now, I was just pointing out to you that there are three verbs for love that are associated with these kinds of truth, and remember, we've got three parts of a soul. So this is all fairly handy, right? Reason, that part of the soul, right, relates to a particular kind of truth or wisdom, right, through a particular kind of love, philia, a kind of brotherly love, right? Self-control, remember the good horse, the one that when it's in control you've got judgment, and basically this horse is obeying reason, right? Self-control through agape, a spiritual kind of love, just wants to do what's right. Right? So it relates to the good through agape. Right? And then finally, desire. Remember that unreasoning desire that overpowers a person's impulse to do right and is taken to takes pleasure in beauty. Right? Well, of course, desire through eros relates to beauty. And these forms are the proper nourishment for the soul, and each of these kinds of love are different kinds of desire. So we've got three parts of the soul, three kinds of love, and three kinds of perfect truth that they relate to. Remember when I was saying that this soul cannot just oppose one side to the other, because the other side will push back, and frequently it'll lose, but either way, even if reason and self-control are able to subdue desire, desire will be conflicted, right? The soul will be conflicted. Right? Now, the key word that Plato is trying to achieve with his argument in favor of love is harmony. what he's trying to describe is a kind of love that involves all three, philia, agape, and eros, that feeds all three parts of the soul with all three aspects of perfect truth, which are its proper nourishment. Right? So what happens when we get into one of these problematic erotic relationships is that the poor, obedient, nasty, impetuous horse overpowers, right, our better elements, and we do stupid, foolish, wrong-headed, nasty, jealous, bitter, jerky kind of things. Right? What we do when we control this part of our soul, right, just through pure opposition, is we get into one of these non-love relationships that ultimately only satisfies our physical desire for immediate gratification. What Plato wants to do is unite all three parts of the soul, right, and properly direct them to that which they really want. In a purely erotic relationship, or even in a non-love relationship, all we're really satisfying is our body. Right? That's not good enough for Plato. Right? What he wants us to do is, in a sense, not abolish desire. Right? This dark horse, we're not getting rid of that horse, it's part of us, it's part of our soul. It's where a lot of our power and our judgment come from. Right? And it itself is not desiring anything that's really bad for it. Right? This part of the soul is just stupid. It gets us into trouble. Right? So what Plato suggests is that through the exercise of reason and self-control, what we have to do is retrain desire. Right? To utilize eros and direct itself towards that which is proper to it, beauty. Now, interestingly enough, what Plato points out is that there is something special about the form of beauty. When we were in the realm of the forms before, we saw them all: wisdom, truth, the good, and then beauty. Right? And the reason we get so messed up about, eros, is because, well, as he points out here, right? You're page 39. Well, all that was for the love of a memory that made me stretch out my speech in longing for the past. Now, beauty, as I said, was radiant among the other objects. And now that we have come down here to the realm of appearances, we grasp it sparkling through the clearest of our senses. Vision, of course, is the sharpest of our bodily senses, although it does not see wisdom. We have to reason our way to wisdom. Right? It would awaken a terribly powerful love if an image of wisdom came through our sight as clearly as beauty does, and the same of the other objects of inspired love, the good. Right? But now beauty alone has this privilege to be the most clearly visible and the most loved. Of course, a man who was initiated long ago, da-da-da-da-da-da. So what he's saying here is that of all the forms, right, truth and wisdom, mathematical truth, we have to reason our way to. Justice, piety, virtue, and the like, we have to reason our way to. Reason is our only connection to it. But beauty, we can actually bloody well see beauty. And every time we see beauty, it awakens this powerful memory of all of the forms. Right? Now, sadly, what normally happens is that this part of the soul, desire, gets all messed up and does something stupid. Right? This part of the soul starts panting, it starts, desiring, it gets all sweaty and itchy and other erotic, because Plato is quite erotic with his description of what happens in this kind of encounter with beauty to somebody who is not in control of themselves. Right? If you see a beautiful body, you desire it, and you set off, as Plato would say, in the manner of a four-footed beast, eager to make babies. Right? So what he ultimately suggests is that we have to use reason and self-control, and, in a sense, keep our pants on. Right? That will retrain that form of desire.